Well, hello there and welcome to the bedroom of the dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and you Stelfers for March 15th, the day of the heights. That's right. Near the top of the page is a visual representational image of the day of the heights. Well, we have us, this one seems rather apt. All right, here we go. It is a very tall ladder. That's right. Hey, does that speak to the day of the heights? Well, I would say it probably does. That's right. A lot of times these things are rather enigmatic, so when something kind of speaks to it, I would say it's novel. That said, visual representational image aside, not altogether all too important in the scheme of things, not when it's March 15th. So if your birthday's March 15th, what's important around these here parts? Wishing you a happy birthday. So I just want to say happy birthday. But if this video finds you late, as sometimes often happens, days, weeks, months, whatever the case may happen to be, well, I hope you had a happy birthday in that case. That said, a lot of other times people join us randomly to find out about the day, and if that's the case, I want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before I dive in with the redirect, something I like to do around these here parts is take a couple minutes to roll some dice. This is the DykASSt birthday broadcast, so I like to live up to the namesake. But if this isn't something you're interested in, just skip ahead in the chapters, get into the redirect. That said, I'm going to be here rolling dice for a more special reason. And what is that special reason? Well, for synchronicity's sake. And here I rolled a 6 and a 2, 4 and 8. Now, what is synchronicity? You're probably wondering if you haven't been here before. Well, my friends, as I hear it told, the universe, or the higher powers that be, if you like, will oftentimes put things on our path to help us manifest our goals or realize our aspirations. But a lot of times, as I also hear it told and can understand, we often have the blinders on to what's going on around us, so we may not be apt to pick up such signs, if you like. So this is a little bit of an exercise to help us drop the blinders and start picking up on those things that might help us realize our goals, right? But we need some kind of sign that's kind of mutually agreed upon between us and the universe, so we can't help but miss those things, hopefully. So what's that sign? That's right, your daily numbers. Now, you don't have to go with the numbers I rolled for you. The intention is there, but it's probably advisable you take your own set of dice if this is something you want to try out. So you can ascribe directional values, number sets, and time limits with which to go in those directions. You're essentially letting the universe take the wheel and drive and show you what it wants to show you, all right? That said, once you've got all that established, head on out to some place that's maybe near and dear to your heart, or a place you haven't explored before, all right? And then, like I said, get those blinders off. You never know, the day might start to take on a little bit of a theme. Take the visual representational image, for instance, the ladders, right? Hey, you might start seeing ladders everywhere you go. I know coincidence, you might say, but I think coincidences and synchronicities are kind of synonymous, if you like, all right? Just another interpretation of as much. That said, it doesn't have to be the ladders. That's just the low-hanging fruit, all right? You get off on this first directional value, you might see something cross your path, like a black cat, and then later on down the line, you start to see black cats pop up everywhere, either in sticker form, advertisements. Hey, it could be in a shop window. You never know. And this isn't Halloween, so it might be a little more rare to see a black cat, all right? That said, I think you get the idea. So you head on out on this first directional value, time limit there, and maybe you're not seeing anything at the end of it, all right? Hey, never fret. Just kind of take things in stride. I assume it takes the universe a little while to get things arranged in such a way, but that said, maybe you step back, look around, see what you see, and you might notice something small, like you're on what's this? Oh, 26th Street or 8th Avenue, who's to say? But I would take that as a sign you're on the right path, all right? Maybe you roll yourself another directional value, time limit. No sooner does that first value come out with your dice there for your directional value, maybe the number 8 bus pulls up, assuming you rolled yourself another 8, right? Hey, I would take that as a sign to get on the bus and ride, all right? Maybe you just so happen to have perfect change in your pocket to do as much, all right? Hey, but maybe you took too long to come to that decision, and the bus leaves. Oh, shoot, you know what? And maybe on the side of that bus was the theme of the day, all right? An advertisement, if you like. And you know what? Take that as a sign to go in that direction that the bus was going. And just roll yourself a time value to see how long, all right? Maybe by the end of that time value, you come to, I don't know, just some place on the sidewalk. Maybe there's some guy standing on a ladder painting a black cat on a mural. Hey, you know what? There you go. The themes are starting to kind of coalesce. And maybe he's wearing a shirt that's got, what's this? That's right, the old 26 on the back. I don't know. You never know. That said, maybe the individual, it just about that time comes off the ladder, sees you rolling your dice for another time value, asks you what you're doing. Hey, in such circumstances, just be open, transparent with folks. Let them know what's going on. It's my birthday. I'm trying to shake things up. Or my birthday was a few weeks ago. I'm trying to get out there and make up for it, do something fun. And they say, that's pretty crazy, all right? You show them this video, show them your dice. They're going to say, you know what? It's even crazier. It's my birthday too, they might say. And you might be like, yeah, right. That seems a little bit too coincidental. If you're like, well, it is. Hey, maybe they show you your driver's license just to prove it to them. I don't know. Or prove it to you, rather. That said, you know what? Just another notch in the belt. Another synchronicity to stack up. And you know what? Maybe they're done painting that black cat. They're done for the day. Hey, they might just be apt to join you. And maybe they need a little help putting the ladder back on the top of their rig. All right? Hey, you know what? You just happen to be there at just the right time. And then maybe they set out with you on this particular journey. And you know what's great about that is more people who join in on the same thing, focusing on the same results, you're apt to beget greater benefits. All right? See more synchronicities and coincidences if you like. So, in any event, I think you get the idea. That's synchronicity in a nutshell. Let's get on with the birthday read. Your month is March, your day is the 15th, your sign is 23 to 25 degrees, Pisces, of the Pisces III period specifically. And your quality and element is mutable water. All right, March 15th, the day of the heights. Many born on March 15 are taken up with rising to a high position in their element, be it within a company, a social group, or profession. In addition, they display natural leadership ability and magnetic qualities which make it likely that others will follow them. Not always content to advance within an existing structure, some March 15th people will find it necessary to initiate new endeavors in which they play a central role from the start. Therefore, once they have made a commitment, establishing a family or a business comes quite naturally to them. Curiously enough, climbing to the heights can be a literal theme in the lives of March 15th people, and many born on this day are attracted to physical activities involving elevation, whether it being hang gliding, diving, rock climbing, or scaling a mountain to enjoy the scenery. Less confident individuals born on this day may show an actual fear of heights, which can be probably overcome through courage and a willingness to understand its psychological basis. In some cases, this may be related to an unconscious pact not to surpass a parent, especially of the same sex, it says in parentheticals, an inhibition that can limit their endeavors. Thus, individuals born on this day who avoid high places may be less afraid of failure than of success. Generally speaking, from an early age, March 15 people are concerned with getting ahead and making for the top. And if they are able to express this desire in a socially appropriate fashion and move slowly but steadily toward their goal, they will have a better chance of meeting with success. If, however, their actions are precipitous or are built around envy, insecurity, or strident competition, they can experience great resistance from those around them. And the warning lights should be flashing and the alarm bells of caution should be clanging whenever those born on this day feel the stirrings of ambition without having a well-defined goal in mind. And this is not to indicate that their enthusiasm is a negative quality by any means, just that for March 15th people in particular, endeavors should be carefully considered. Certain fatal aspects attached to this day which can inexplicably change the course of events in a highly unexpected way. The only way for those born on this day to prepare for such situations is to build their skills, self-confidence, flexibility, and acceptance to the point where they are ready for almost anything. An important decision for March 15 people is whether or not to work with others in a career situation. The choice between self-employment and company employment, for example, can be a crucial one. Furthermore, in their personal lives, March 15 people often face similarly difficult decisions in regard to bonding with a life partner, having children, or investing in a financially costly permanent home base. And not infrequently, March 15 people put off such commitments or even ultimately choose to live on their own, giving up certain personal rewards and opportunities in favor of a freer lifestyle. All right, particularly fascinating birthday breakdown insofar as it was really well rounded out. All right. And I bring that up because, in no small part, most of the birthday readings, going all the way back to Capricorn, have been very hyper or laser of focus. Right? They don't drill down on the relationships or what you might be like as a parent or your childhood there. And I thought they went into a lot of the different various aspects within that, instead of just focusing on the theme of the day and then expanding out from there. They did that a little bit here and there and made some very interesting points, but again, they rounded it out for you by diving into other things. That said, I like to bring up a little bit of a commentary, make some notes on things I found interesting or that's kind of, what do you call, compare well with days previous or the period at large, or maybe they just completely contrast with it. So I'd like to get into it. So let's do so. All right. March 15th, the day of the heights. It says you're taken up with rising to a high position in your endeavors. And the reading claims you display a natural leadership ability and possess magnetic qualities that may attract others to follow you. And whereas most people born in this period are said to also have magnetic influences, it isn't often mentioned directly or with regard to it causing people to follow you. A quality I'll explain as we get on in with the read a little bit more, but the reading further goes on to say that you may not be content with systems established by others, and you may have to have this desire to build it from scratch so that you can build things up anew in a fresh way, and so that you can play a central role, at least from a new starting point. And hence, what do we have here? You're playing that central role, like I said, and it's kind of within your social dynamic, if you like. And as it turns out, in doing so, this is a little bit of an overarching commonality in the period. Having a central role. I would say for you it's a little bit more differently realized insofar as starting afresh with your particular prospects or endeavors. But finding that central role is something that comes up quite often. But beyond that, all right, so the reading claims that climbing to new heights may be a literal theme in your life. To say you may be attracted to actions that involve taking yourself to high places, or in a more figurative term, you may have uncomfortability with heights and overcoming such challenges, if you like. The former is interesting and novel, dynamic for the period, I would say, since it's very literal in terms like, who's to say that being born on a certain day is going to bring you an attraction to being in a high place? It's interesting if that is actually the case. But overcoming challenges is actually rather common in this period. So it makes a lot of sense that this would come up in those respects. Though it's interesting that the heights, or overcoming your fear of heights, is something they focus on specifically. So it's novel in that respect. That said, this dynamic of those who avoid such figurative or literal heights, perhaps being more afraid of success than of failure, that's a quite novel prospect. All right, I would say in no small part it affects just about everybody to some extent. But I don't think this has ever come up before. So it's interesting that they broached this particular dynamic here. What else do we have? It might not breed any uncertain amount of let's see. The reading goes on to say that it warns of actions born of envy and competition may breed no uncertain amount of resistance versus moving ahead in a methodical, socially appropriate way. And they also mention carefully considering your actions if ambition to make moves without well-defined goals in mind is a particular practice of yours. So fighting impulses may work out better for you in the long run versus other people who seem to do well by going by the seat of their pants, if you like. For you, it sounds like it's something you may have to balance or be kind of moderate with. And a lot of times this comes up. Some folks it just works out better for, others it doesn't. So maybe take note of as much. But suggestions to prepare yourself and cultivate your skills is recommended to help you with such concerns and extends to your personal life as well. There's a little bit of a juxtaposition there where they brought off some folks born in this period might like to go off on their own. And I would say, in no small part, that's been popping up too somewhat regularly in comparison to some of the other periods in the complete zodiac there. So, pretty interesting. But it's kind of peppered in here and there in this particular period. So, not completely common, but it does come up. So I would say a cultivation rather of self-awareness seems to be buried in between the lines of a lot of this particular birthday read. And that's pretty common here for the book writ large. Also moderation as well as balance. And I think that was in there also, even if they didn't expressly state it. Moderation, like I said, this was a pretty well-rounded birthday read, all things being considered, and that doesn't often happen. So, yeah, pretty fascinating day, I would say, for a myriad of different reasons. That said, that's what I'd say about the birthday breakdown. A little stymied in there. I'm trying to suppress a cough, so if you hear me stifling that's why. So if one might sneak past me, we'll just have to see. That said, let's move on to your numbers and your planets. All right, those born on the 15th of the month are ruled by the number 6, as 1 + 5 = 6, and by the planet Venus. And those ruled by the number 6 tend to be charismatic and even inspire worship in others. And the dual influence of Venus and Neptune, which is the ruler of Pisces, grants great charm to March 15th people, but can also make them vulnerable to romance and likely to associate with unstable or questionable characters. Interesting. That particular dynamic hasn't come up in a while. All right, let's dive back in with the notes. This was a rather sparse numbers and planets entry, but I would say it was rather personalized to some extent. Why is that important? I don't know. I just like folks to know if they did a copy-paste job or not. So, in no small part, maybe a little bit, but it's rather boilerplate in those terms. I think they still personalize it for you here. That said, I'm going to quit droning on. Let's get into the notes here. The number 6 in the planet Venus for traits of being charismatic and inspiring worship. All right, but interestingly, when coupled with the planet Neptune, is said to make you vulnerable to romance and associations with questionable people. All right, we heard all that. The latter elements that hasn't really presented this period. Burning everything I had to say down. But with Neptune being a planet of dreams, visions, and concern for higher ideals and concerns with romanticism as an applied/appreciated concept, it makes sense you may get a bit of that affecting you in adverse ways. But with Venus's representation of love and beauty, whether of sensuous or idealistic natures, and Neptune said to impart magnetic influence that breaks down rigid and absolute natures, or that different kind of magnetism that I mentioned earlier, I think it makes a certain kind of sense that you'd be apt to focus on or be influenced by the heights, if you like, all right? Either literal, but certainly more figuratively speaking, especially if the ethereal head in the clouds kind of paradigm presented, what do we got here, that's imparted by both planets, at least in an astrological concern, remains true. All right, those folks that born under Neptune have the head in the clouds and inspired by or driven by higher concepts. And a lot of times those are realized as dedicating themselves to a cause, but more likely in this particular period, as we're finding things, it's more focused on individualism and how dedication to realizing themselves kind of takes precedence over a social cause, which was more drilled down upon earlier on in the Pisces period. That said, I would say you get a little bit of it. They mentioned a little bit of a social dynamic in there, but I don't know. It seemed a little bit more individually focused, at least towards the tail end of the read, when they were getting into you maybe deciding to go your own way versus a romantic relationship. Who's to say there might just be some conflict baked in there as far as the romantic aspects are concerned? Who's to say everybody's different, I would argue, but We might have some commonalities in there. That said, that's what I had to say about your numbers and your planets. So let's move on to your tarot. That's right, one of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies, but it's here in the book. Sometimes we can make connotations with things that we were brought up in the read, if you like. We'll just have to see, because sometimes they don't come up, all right? That said, let's get into it here. The 15th card of the major arcana is the Devil. Which indicates a fear/desire dynamic working where sexual attraction, irrationality, and passion are concerned. And the devil holds us slave through our need for security and money. And he represents our base nature grasping for security. And he controls us through the irreconcilable differences which exist in our male/female nature. And the positive and negative sides of this card are both found in sexual attraction and the expression of passionate desires. But this card reminds us that although we are bound to our bodies, our spirits are free to soar. Well, all right. In no small part, I feel like they changed up the boilerplate writing for this particular card. There was some aspect in there that it seemed new. So by and large, they copy-paste the tarot in here, and they'll button it with something that's kind of specific to the day. They didn't do that here, but I think they threw in a sentence or two that changed up the card a little bit. So that's rather new. That said, I'm sure you don't care too much about that, but let's get back into the notes here. The Devil, a once-a-month card, and it's usually represented by the lovers on any other number 6 day. So you get a very specific card. It's not going to pop up for anybody else this month, all right? Which represents a fear-desire dynamic with passion, sexual attraction, apparently, and irrationality. A little more of that romanticism from Neptune baked into the bargain for you, potentially. Oh, and hey, Venus, too, with the planet of love and admiration of beauty. I would say all those things are kind of being hyper-focused for you because they kind of complement each other. And that irrationality might get baked into it. Hey, maybe that's why they had to personalize the tarot to bring notice to that particular dynamic. There you go. And as I say here, which seems particularly apt considering all these fascinating dynamics. So also the ones that were brought up with regard to in the breakdown with insofar as the heights and the fear of success over failure. I would say those kind of come into the bargain too. Not just focused on the sexual, the sensuous, or the romantic either. But while a base nature grasping for security could be said to ring true for just about anyone, this element of irreconcilable differences through the female-male dynamic is very interesting considering the Lover's card represents the love that comes from the unification of the male-female dynamic. So you kind of get the opposite, if you like, the obverse, I think I was trying to say. But with positives and negatives of hinging on how you express your passions. So it's probably ideal we're here in the bedroom there if they're more sexual focused. All right, I think it's a quite apt card for you, considering how you may react to your impulses based on the breakdown. All right, whether that's true or not, hey, that's for you to decide, but pretty interesting cards. So they definitely personalize this one for you here a bit. And I think it's a rather interesting draw. It lines up in no small part. That said, that's been your health, so let's move on. Or it's been your tarot, rather. Let's move on to your health. A little Freudian slip there, getting ahead of myself. All right. Those born on March 15 must take particular care not to get involved in destructive love relationships. Once again, all right. They have a propensity for sex and love addictions, and although tremendously pleasurable, can ultimately prove claiming, dependence promoting, and painful. Meeting others with similar problems for discussions or taking part in various individual and group psychological counseling or therapy can provide insight into such problems. All addictive substances, be it alcohol or drugs, should be viewed with caution. And as far as diet is concerned, March 15 people do best when they can take an active interest in food for cooking, and or through cooking rather, where their natural pride and their sensuous traits guarantee success. Interesting. And care should be taken with cream, butter, and other rich items. Physical exercise of a moderate variety is strongly recommended for March 15 people on a regular daily or weekly basis. All right. Hey, rather novel, fascinating health entry, to be sure. The psychological component that they really dove in with, it comprised like 2/3 of the thing. They don't often do that, and so maybe take note with this much. And here again, I'm probably burning down everything I have to say, but just in case it's not in there, I wanted to say that. So let's dive back into the notes here. You must be careful to avoid destructive love relationships. Novel for the period, I would say. So maybe take note. Considering mention of sexual addiction, perhaps having power over you, which they really drilled down on uncharacteristically, all right? Doesn't often pop up in the book. Maybe once or twice before I remember it coming up. And that's out of 357 days, I think, including February 29 there. Coupling that with drugs makes for a very novel entry also. That devil, claiming ownership over us, over our fears and desires or whatever. Escapism is another theme that comes up with Neptune days. I'm surprised it didn't pop up here. Also, hallucinogenic drugs are said to be avoided. Now, it didn't pop up here for you, but hey, something to be mindful of as well, because you're ruled by Neptune in no small part. Cooking for sensuality expression there, so you're not diving into things that could ostensibly ruin your lives in no small part. Hey, novel inclusion. That kind of started popping up in the beginning of Capricorn, and I'm like, why are they focusing on cooking so much when usually they drill down on very specific foods to incorporate into your diet or keep out? And I just thought, hey, it's probably because you're incorporating fresh ingredients, and that's where you're getting your nutrition from. And I think one time they mentioned that was the reason there. And so it's surprising all the times they brought it up, it only got brought up one time in those respects. They said avoid dairy, and for that reason I would say it's because Pisces body areas are the feet and toes in the lymphatic system, and dairy is not it doesn't react real well with the lymphatic system, if you like. So by keeping the dairy out, keep things free flowing. There's also some mention of fluid retention here day in, day out. That's been coming up more regular the past week or so. Don't know how that relates, but I'm sure it's the lymphatic system, because I'm sure the feet and toes don't really mean much about that. So in any event, brought that up there since they didn't mention too much of it. But regular moderate exercise with focus on variety, rather boilerplate mention, but there's no extreme conflicts or particularly shakeups within the planetary astrological sense there with Venus and Neptune. Usually you see like a vigorous exercise when Mars is incorporated into the mix, so they can exercise that god of warlike energy. Or if there's a conflict between planets, like say Saturn and Jupiter, it might be realized in a different kind of exercise way. Or if Uranus comes in and starts shaking up and electrifying whatever particular planet dynamics going on, then the exercise might see something different. To say when Mars and Uranus meet, a lot of times it's mild exercise, very childlike natures come out. It's kind of crazy, so it totally bucks a lot of the trends. But here for you, moderate to regular, all right? That said, that's been your health. That was very interesting. They drill down so much on the psychological. Not very often they do that. But that said, let's move on to some advice. All right, here we go. Though you may not be satisfied with your position, learn to enjoy yourself where you are. Beware of your power drives, remain unselfish, and kindness and generosity will repay you many times over. And give up unconscious contracts with your parents. Interesting. They don't often bring that one up. All right, let's start getting on a coughing fit. I gotta be careful here. All right, your advice. I put it in a book here, so let me adjust here. And bear with me, my writing's tiny. Sometimes I stumble and fumble my way through this. All right, learn to enjoy yourself where you are, they said. I'd say some Dale Carnegie type advice, winning friends and influencing people. Make things fun for yourself, even if you have to fool yourself into it. Over time, you might start getting used to it and might actually like it, all right? I'm assuming that's to help yourself build things and slowly towards success, as mentioned in the breakdown there. Ostensibly so you don't follow your impulse and chance premature disaster, all right? They also said beware of your power drives and remain unselfish. You can drive to the top. but you don't have to necessarily climb and knock people over to get there. All right. Let's see here, and then also you've got that charm and that baked-in magnetism, like they mentioned. And if that's real, I would say those are opportune tools to get you what you need out of things. You don't have to beg, borrow, and steal to do as much. Not that that's what came into the mix there, but I would say in no small part, people kind of get into that, especially if you're impulsive in no small part. All right, so what else do they have? So yeah, use your charm and your magnetism. They said kindness and generosity will repay you many times over. So I'd say that dovetails nicely into it. If you're not climbing over folks and you're treating them decent, they're going to repay you in the end. They're going to remember as much, all right, versus the other people who are trying to clamber over them, right? They also said give up unconscious contracts with your parents, all right? There may be a historical precedent for why they bring this up, to say people born on this day historically have had issues with their parents, who's to say? Or if these sexual addiction type things, I don't know if that's some kind of linchpin with those kinds of regards, who's to say? But they bring it up. So it might be an influence on you, who's to say? But try to resolve those things, even if it's just within yourself, probably. Heavy baggage for some folks, to be sure. Hard to reach the heights under that kind of weight, though. All right? So be mindful. It's definitely worth it to try and rid yourself of those things, or at least that baked-in chemical attraction or hinging to it. Try to dissolve those bonds, even if you still got that baggage in the background there, in the overhead compartment, if you like. So, any event, that's been your advice. Let's move on to your meditation. All right, it's your birthday. You get something to think on. Not that we haven't had a bunch of that already. Here we go. The perfect marriage of pleasure and pain can be found in the realm of love. All right. They're focusing on the love there. Like avoiding the devil, if you like. All right, one more time. The perfect marriage of pleasure and pain can be found in the realm of love. All right. Your birthday, your meditation, I'm not going to throw my spin or interpretation on it. Kind of ruin the whole idea of it being a meditation in that respect. That said, let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. Let's hold up the objective mirror and see where you got the girth and where you're maybe otherwise a little more ostensibly atrophied within the metaphor. Your strengths, you're ambitious, you're charismatic, and you're enthusiastic. But your weaknesses, let's hold that objective mirror back up, but flip it to the side that blows up your face there. Maybe shows up, things you're otherwise a little more superficially insecure about. All right, your weaknesses. You're envious, overcompetitive, and impulsive. Hey, we knew the impulsive one. That one's not news. Oftentimes I like to make the argument that our strengths are going to help us overcome our weaknesses, if there's something that need improved upon anyway. So I got off the copy there somehow. In any event, I also like to say our weaknesses can probably also be strengths if we just figure out how to channel them and use them in a particular situation. That said, how can we overcome our weaknesses with our strengths? It says you're ambitious. Hey, you're going to be driving after things. You're going to see the challenge, and you're going to want to rise to it, all right? You're charismatic. Hey, if you're bringing in other people, it's huge because your social comrades are going to help you out with as much. If you're compassionate to their issues, they're probably going to be compassionate to yours. And sometimes we need help with stuff, all right? Enthusiastic. Hey, you know what? You're excited to get after the challenge, all right? You're excited to rise after it, even if, that seems to dovetail with ambitious in no small part. But, ambitious folks aren't always excited to do what they're doing. Maybe it's just the challenge, all right? They got to get after it. But if you're enthusiastic with it, hey, it's like that Dale Carnegie stuff. You're fooling yourself into finding the fun in it, all right? So that's huge. We can have fun while we're accomplishing something. Hey, you know what? We can go after just about anything. That said, your weaknesses, you're envious, overcompetitive, and impulsive. How can those be strengths? All right. Well, with envious, we can use it as a motivator. All right. I want that. Okay. Well, how do we go off and get it? Don't let it be something that holds you back and just starts stewing up the jealousy there within you. use it as motivation. All right. It says you can also cultivate self-awareness. I think this is the huge one with all three of these things. You're over competitive. Well, you inspire others to get after it, to be ambitious, to be enthusiastic about rising to these challenges. It's also going to help with your creativity if you're over ambitious. All right. Hey, we got to find some new way to cook up approaching this particular obstacle, or surmounting it, if you like. But you're also impulsive. How can that be a strength? Well, you're taking risks that others may not take. All right. And you're seeing a chance to get into an opportunity, or you're seizing one rather. You might also chance into that opportunity. Other people, they're not impulsive. They might not find their way into it because they're not jumping at those particular chances. It's like buying in on a stock early that nobody else has taken notice of. And maybe it's not something that has any particular prospects, but maybe at some point they develop something novel and boom, it takes off. There's no way to predict it, but you were impulsive and helped you get in on it, so you reap the benefits. That said, I think I know where they're coming from with all of these as weaknesses. Envious, that can turn green with envy, if you like. You're getting out there with a jealousy. It's not a good look. Over competitive, maybe you're overextending yourself, also not necessarily a good look amidst your comrades, coworkers, the people you're in competition with. Hey, you know what? They might not just be apt to join you when you need their help, all right? Because you were a little bit too hot and heavy when you came in with things. And impulsive, hey, you're jumping at things that aren't measured, and it's not going to end up well for you, all right? Just we got to be measured with these things, but all of them, I would say, we got to cultivate a little self-awareness, all right? So it's the circumstance, it's identifying your audience, it's knowing when to use those particular things, when they're going to be the best tool to pull out of your box for that respective task or obstacle ahead of you. So that said, I oftentimes like to say, don't get rid of your weaknesses altogether for that reason, and also because they're just a part of who you are. They make you who you are, right? That said, I think you get the idea, your strengths and weaknesses. Let's move on to those born on this day. And when we get into those born on this day, not only do we get to see who shares your company, which can be an interesting lottery, I like to use this as an opportunity to try to inspire folks, or at least get the bug in your ear to start driving after a passion, if you don't already have something like that in your life. Because too often I get out in the world and meet folks, asking what they do, and more importantly, if they like it. And a lot of times you can see on their face they don't, even if they say otherwise. And I think it's just because, hey, they don't have something to drive after. Or they got out of school and they got right into a job to make ends meet. At the very root of it, it was nothing they liked to do. They just needed to make that money. And so they get used to it, start climbing the corporate ladder over time. Maybe it's easy. They know how to do the job. People are now underneath them doing it for them. Now they're just reaping the benefits. Who's to say? But like I said, the fatal flaw, it's not something they ever liked to do. So I think this is a great opportunity to start thinking about finding our passions, all right? Because I think it takes time, effort, and energy to do as much. And a lot of times we don't take the time to carve that out and set time aside to focus on such things. So let's use this as the opportunity to do so. Because if there's anything I can wish for someone on their birthday, it's that they're driving after a passion, or at least starting down the path to figure one out if they don't have it. But if you do have a passion, well, then the hat I'm not wearing is off to you. Let's just see who shares your company. All right, here we go. We start off with Andrew Jackson, the U.S. populist president, who said, "Let the people rule." And he was also a debater, a duelist, and joined the Revolutionary Militia at 13 as a general, led backwoods fighters to defeat the British in the 1812 battle. The Battle of 1812 is probably better said there, even though they didn't write it that way. All right, here we are, moving on. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the Supreme Court Justice. We also have Sly Stone, the soul rock singer and the songwriter of Sly and the Family Stone, also a funk pioneer, and sang the song Take Me Higher. Oh, interesting. Let's see how many pilots we get today. It drives in with the theme. We have Alan Laverne Bean, all right? Probably my favorite U.S. astronaut, as it turns out. U.S. astronaut, a captain, and placed the first scientific observatory on the moon. Though I'd say he's a little more famous for switching SLC to aux when the Apollo 12 got struck by lightning twice, and then they had to shut down all the systems, and they almost had to abandon the advance. If you haven't seen From Earth to the Moon, that HBO miniseries, check it out, all right? That's why it became my favorite moon mission there. That's it, Alan Bean. There you go. Who else do we have? Lawrence Tish, the CBS chairman, Lou Wasserman, MCA chairman, Ry Cooder rather, slide guitarist, singer-songwriter, and versatile master of American music traditions. We have Lightnin' Hopkins, a blues singer, guitarist, and songwriter. Felipe de Broca, French film director of King of Hearts and a producer. Also Cecil Taylor, an avant-garde jazz pianist and composer. Luigi Longo, a founder of the Italian Communist Party. David Wall, a British dancer and director of the Royal Academy of Dancing. Fu Quifeng, a Chinese magician, a historian, and responsible for the art of Chinese acrobatics. We have Charles Nungesser, an aviator. There we go. Thomas F. Dixon, here we go, aviation company executive, who's just say if he flew anything, but he was involved in the heights, if you like. Got to the highest part of the corporate ladder there, if you like. There you go. Michael Love, singer in the Beach Boys. Terrence Trent D'Arby, a singer. Judd Hirsch, Broadway film and TV actor of Taxi fame. Louis Berman, an endocrinologist, and isolated the parathyroid hormone and writer of Regulating Personality. And we also have Phil Lesh, an electric bass guitarist and member of the Grateful Dead. I dare say a lot of musicians today, maybe even more than people who were concerned with the heights of things, all right? So interesting. That said, my favorite astronauts in there, this is also an interesting period because there have been so many astronauts. Just in the past week, there's been like 4, so it's pretty interesting in that respect. That having been said, I know it's I know it's a big-ass tall order to take inspiration from other people's accomplishments. But hey, if I can just put the bug in your ear about rising to the occasion, carving some time out to do the important work, to figure out your passions, hey, you know what? I can't wish for anything else for you. You should be doing backflips out of bed to get on with your day, all right? That said, I butchered a few names in there. Certainly that Chinese one. I lived in China for a year, but I still didn't learn anything about pronouncing the language. So let's butcher things on my side of there. It's not done in malice. It's just hooked on phonics. Doesn't work for me in a lot of cases with the names there. Certainly the Chinese ones for sure, and the Russian and the French, and hey, the whole smorgasbord. Polish. There you go. So in any event, that's essentially rounds out your birthday reading. All right. Except to say your season is winter. Your sign once again is Pisces, of the Pisces III period specifically, and your quality and elements is mutable water. And this has been March 15th, the day of the Heights, from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and you Stelfers. I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description if you're interested in picking up a copy of your own and diving in at your own pleasure. This thing makes an excellent coffee table book. If you ever have company over and you just need to break that ice, maybe you don't want to go to the effort to do as much, you know what? Let this thing do the lion's share of the lifting in those kinds of circumstances, all right? That said, the affiliate link is right above a little personal message I like to put together for the birthday boys and girls, ladies and gents, so go check that out if you're interested. And if you pick up the book or shop through that link, if you like, hey, you support the channel in the bargain, which I appreciate. That said, the book altogether not all too important, not when it's somebody's birthday. That's right. So what's important around here, like I said at the top, wishing you a happy birthday, all right? So happy birthday. And for everybody else who joined us randomly, we're here to celebrate more ideally. Hey, I hope you enjoyed yourselves, took something of value, even though it wasn't your birthday, and we see you for your birthday reading, all right? Lest I forget, though, before I take us out, boom, your daily numbers. That's right. Hey, we had a 6. Your day was a 6. A little bit of synchronicity there, though it probably would have been more ideal if it was a 3 and a 3 for a 6. But hey, you know what? All things being considered, just get out there and let the universe show you it's with you on your path. And if you see, taste, touch, intuit, hear, taste, smell, any kind of a magic or synchronicity, hey, you're apt to understand why I brought it up. Hopefully it blows your hair back, all right? Fingers crossed. Otherwise, hey, at least you got your steps in, I would argue, all right? That said, I just want to thank you for the pleasure of your time. It was a privilege to share your birthday with you, and take care of yourself, all right? And avoid your dairy there, all right? And keep your fluid retention going, even though I know they didn't bring it up for you. Okay, all right. Enjoy yourselves, and once again, happy birthday.